With the WINN FM News, reporting, I am German Abel. The St. Kitts and Nevis National Carnival 2024-2025 prize-giving ceremony, held on Friday, marked the grand conclusion of another spectacular season of culture and celebration. Hosted at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort, the event brought together winners, competitors, sponsors, and guests for a night of reflection and recognition. Sugar Mass 53 was filled with unforgettable moments, showcasing the Federation's rich heritage through folklore competitions, pageants, calypso, soca, steel pan, and vibrant street festivities. Samuel Duggins, Minister of the Creative Economy, emphasized that the ceremony was not just about honoring the winners, but also about appreciating everyone who contributed to making the 2024-2025 Carnival season so special.
We are not just here to celebrate the winners. Tonight, we celebrate history. What we have just witnessed was a cultural explosion like no other. From the streets of Bastille to the screens of millions worldwide, Sugar Mass 53 shattered every record in its path. Imagine this: over 3,000 mass revelers, 6,000 Juve warriors, and over 250 folklore performers flooding the streets in a kaleidoscope of color, rhythm, and raw Caribbean energy. This was more than a carnival. This was a movement. We truly welcomed the world. More regional and international revelers danced alongside us this year than ever before, and our airports saw its highest ever arrivals this year. Sugar Mass 53 was indeed the place to be.
The festivities saw record-breaking attendance, with more people than ever participating in key activities. Thousands tuned in to experience the magic of Sugar Mass from around the world. Describing Sugar Mass 53 as the brightest, the boldest, and the most unforgettable festival in our nation's history, the minister paid tribute to revelers, performers, and organizers whose passion and dedication made the event a resounding success.
The excitement wasn't just on the streets, though. It was everywhere. Our junior Calypso Monarch had its largest attendance ever. Our folklore competition saw record-breaking participation, and over 200 vendors fueled the festival's energy, proving that Sugar Mass isn't just a celebration. Sugar Mass is an economic powerhouse. And for those who couldn't be here in person, they felt the magic from their screens. Over 3.3 million Facebook views. Yes, you heard right. The world tuned in, proving that our culture isn't just alive. Our culture is thriving, expanding, and our culture is unstoppable.
With U.S. President Donald Trump imposing tariffs on some of America's closest allies, Mexico, Canada, and China, the Caribbean region could face serious economic consequences. The region depends heavily on the United States for food and other essential commodities, and these new trade restrictions could lead to increased costs and supply chain disruptions. The Trump administration tariffs, 25% on some imports and 10% on others, are set to take effect on Tuesday, February 4th, bypassing the North American Free Trade Agreement. Antigua and Barbuda's Prime Minister Gaston Brown, speaking on the sidelines of the recently concluded CAF meeting in Panama, acknowledged the potential fallout. He suggested that the issue should be a major topic at this month's CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Barbados.
Propose tarifications that they're hyperboles, because if indeed the United States were to introduce tariffs in any significant way on a broad variety of goods, clearly it will impact significantly in growth and development within the Caribbean region. And perhaps this is one of the issues that we ought to address at CARICOM at our next meeting, and for us to issue a joint statement or to write jointly to President Trump and his administration to ask them to consider the impact of any such tarification on these small, vulnerable countries within the Caribbean. Because again, increase in prices at this time, considering too that we had to deal with the deleterious. If we have to deal with the, let's say, negative impacts of increased prices, then clearly it will undermine our living standards by increasing cost of living. So tarification is perhaps the largest threat to the Caribbean region of all of the policies that have been announced by the Trump administration.
Like the broader Caribbean, St. Kitts and Nevis imports a large percentage of its food, with data up to 2023 showing imports valued at $200 million. With the lingering effects of the pandemic-induced global inflation, residents continue to feel the sting of rising prices. Accountant Schneidman Warner recently explained the local impact of Trump's tariffs, essentially an additional tax.
We have a tiny market. But if countries are forced to cut their prices in order to keep the price of goods attractive when imported to the United States, you know what they're going to do? When they're selling it to other countries who don't have the bluster and the power as the United States, to increase the price. So something that they're willing to sell to the United States for $100, when they add a 25% tariff on it, it enters the United States at $125. They may say, well, look, to St. Kitts, we'll sell it to you for $110. So we could try and recover some of the money we've lost by selling it cheaper to the United States. And it's not just St. Kitts. To other countries in the world, it's quite possible that they may sell their goods at a higher price in order to recoup some of their costs. If you cannot make it one way, you'll find a way to make it another way. It is not practical to simply move manufacturing as Donald Trump is suggesting. If you want our markets, bring your factories here and let them manufacture the goods here.
Trump announced a 25% tariff from imports from Canada and Mexico, and a 10% tariff on imports from China. Energy resources from Canada will face a lower 10% tariff. The White House justified these measures by stating, quote, President Trump is taking bold action to hold Mexico, Canada, and China accountable to their promises of halting illegal immigration and stopping poisonous fentanyl and other drugs from flowing into our country, end quote. In response, both Mexico and Canada have vowed to retaliate. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau confirmed in a media engagement that more than US $155 billion worth of American goods will be subject to counter tariffs.
Tonight, I am announcing Canada will be responding to the US trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives. Our response will also be far-reaching and include everyday items such as American beer, wine, and bourbon, fruits and fruit juices, including orange juice, along with vegetables, perfume, clothing, and shoes. It'll include major consumer products like household appliances, furniture, and sports equipment, and materials like lumber and plastics, along with much, much more. And as part of our response, we are considering, with the provinces and territories, several non-tariff measures, including some relating to critical minerals, energy, procurement, and other partnerships.
Mexico's president has also confirmed that directives have been given to impose tariffs on American goods. Additionally, Trudeau highlighted another consequence of the decision on Americans, as the increasing number of mass deportation will likely impact the country's food supply.
I want to speak directly to Americans, our closest friends and neighbors. This is a choice that, yes, will harm Canadians, but beyond that, it will have real consequences for you, the American people. As I have consistently said, tariffs against Canada will put your jobs at risk, potentially shutting down American auto assembly plants and other manufacturing facilities. They will raise costs for you, including food at the grocery stores and gas at the pump. They will impede your access to an affordable supply of vital goods crucial for U.S. security, such as nickel, potash, uranium, steel, and aluminum. They will violate the free trade agreement that the President and I, along with our Mexican partner, negotiated and signed a few years ago.
Police are investigating the suspected drowning of a tourist in the waters of St. Kitts and Nevis. On Saturday, February 1st, the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force received a report from the St. Kitts Nevis Defence Force Coast Guard about a suspected drowning at Shittens Bay. The incident occurred between 11 a.m. and 11:30 a.m. Investigations revealed that 81-year-old John Edward Jeffrey, a cruise passenger from London, had been snorkeling when he was seen floating motionless in the water. He was brought aboard a snorkeling tour vessel, but despite efforts to resuscitate him, he could not be revived. Jeffrey was later pronounced dead at the Coast Guard pier. An autopsy will be conducted to determine the exact cause of death. This incident followed two similar deaths back in December. On December 17th, Gemma Mangabo, a tourist from the Oasis of the Sea, was found unresponsive at the Carambola Beach Club after swimming. Just 2 days later, Vivian Hammond, a visitor aboard the Adventure Saga, died after participating in water activities.
Regionally,
Opposition Member of Parliament Vince Roy Jordan today grilled the government on the long-standing problem surrounding the issuance of fishing license to Guyanese fisherfolk by neighboring Suriname. The government had requested that 150 Surinamese license be issued to the Guyanese fishermen to allow them to ply their trade in Surinamese ocean waters. However, despite commitments by both the governments of Guyana and Suriname, the issue has not been resolved. And it is now more than 4 years since Suriname has refused to grant any license to the Guyanese fishermen. As the Committee of Supply commenced the consideration of the budget estimates, Member Jordan repeatedly questioned the Minister of Agriculture, Zulfikar Mustafa, on the issue.
To the Minister, when will the agreement between Guyana and Suriname be inked and fishermen will actually have the license and be able to really venture out into that promised agreement with the fishing agreement between Guyana and Suriname?
In response, the Agriculture Minister told the committee that it was the Irfan Ali administration that raised the issue with the government of Suriname. However, despite a commitment by the Surinamese president, the matter remains unresolved.
They made the commitment, we had it in writing, and we can ask them that they have to give us, or bong them that they have to give us. They reneged on the commitment. We had it in writing. The Minister of Agriculture, no less than that person than the Minister of Agriculture from Suriname, wrote me and said that they will form a government company. That government company will get the license and license the Guyanese fisher folks.
He said the government has raised the issue at a number of regional conferences with the Surinamese officials and even with the Caribbean Fishing Authority, with the hope of getting the issue addressed. Mustafa urged the opposition not to take advantage of the situation and make it into a political issue, but rather to work with the government as a team to secure the fishing license that are required. But Member of Parliament Jordan expressed his disappointment, telling the committee that more than 4 years later, Guyanese fishermen are still without those needed license. Pressing the Agriculture Minister for more answers, the opposition MP questioned whether there is a new timeline that has been set for the resolution of the issue.
This is neither going nor coming. Is it dead or is it still on the table?
Minister Mustafa said there is only so much that the Guyanese government can do.
The government of Guyana, our government, is continuing making representation for the licenses for fisher folks. It's not in our hand to give them the license. The honorable member must comprehend this. We are continuing making the representation. We have had the commitment, I said it, and they reneged on the commitment. We are continuing representing that issue, and that will be a continue on the agenda as long the PBP Civic is in government.
As the opposition MP pressed for more answers, a clearly irritated Minister of Agriculture made it known to the committee that the government is not operating a cake shop, but must continue to utilize diplomatic channels to have the issue resolved. In the absence of the issuance of the license, Guyanese fishermen continue to face harassment at the hands of the Surinamese authorities.
People with sago palms are being urged to be on the lookout as a new scale insect is attacking the plant species. Researchers at the University of the West Indies are now studying the new pest, but are worried it may wipe out the local population of sago palms if left untreated. There have been reports of damage to scores of palms in several parishes already. She's trying to treat a new, deadly insect affecting her palms. It's a scale insect and it only affects this kind of palm, the sago palm. Here's an example of what they can do. But what are scale insects?
So what they do is that they have piercing or sucking mouthparts. And so they sit on a plant, they pierce it, and they suck the juice. They create serious problems because for them to keep the fluid from the plant flowing, they inject saliva, which ends up being toxic to the plant.
Dr. Dwight Robinson is a pest ecologist and senior lecturer at the University of the West Indies Mona campus. This particular scale insect's saliva is not harmful to humans or any other plant except the plant that we know as sago palms. If left unchecked, the rich, shiny, leathery green palms we are used to will look something like this: brown, dried, and will eventually die.
We are very worried because we're not sure the impact it will have on the population. So far in Florida, we are seeing that it has wiped out a number of them. We understand wiping out the ornamental, but we also concerned about our native species.
Damian White is a biologist. This is the species Mr. White says is native to Jamaica. It's called a cardboard palm. It's one of two families of sago palms known in Jamaica. This is the other. They are not palms in the traditional sense, but are simply called palms because of how they look. The other palms, like these, are not affected. At the moment, they are spreading widely and wildly.
Currently, we have seen several dead plants in Kingston. We have got information in Senton. We got information in St. James. We got information in Manchester and Clarendon.
It's human beings that are moving it around. We can't emphasize this enough. Try not to move infested material around.
Scale insects in general are not new, and there are in fact multiple scale insects. But
this one, which is invasive, has just come in. Really, and we have scale insects that we have been around, and so we have natural enemies for them. That's other organisms that feed on them. Unfortunately for this one, because it's new, nature's balance did not come in with it.
Researchers at the University of the West Indies are currently studying this new scale insect. In the meantime, for plant owners affected, chemical control like what we saw this lady doing is recommended.
There are two types of ways you go with chemical control. There are some spray oils, like mineral oil and other oils. Some people refer to them as horticultural oils that people spray. These are not very toxic, but what they do is that if you spray it and spray it well, it actually coats the insect. You heard that the insect has a waxy cuticle. It kind of helps to dissolve the cuticle and makes it more susceptible to spraying. A lot of people tend to go and they want to spray contact insecticides. Contact insecticides tend not to work against this pest.
A systemic pesticide is recommended. It's also recommended you get an expert to apply the pesticide or ensure you have protective gear if you choose to apply it yourself. Dr. Robinson is concerned about the potential economic fallout.
In every pest you want to find out how it affects the economy. And because it's affecting ornamental plants, and there are a lot of dollars invested in these things, that's what we're looking at.
This is because the sago palms are more costly than the average palm. A single small sago palm can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000, while a grown palm can reach up to $100,000. In the 1990s, Asian cycad scale insects wiped out 60% of the sago population in Florida.
Internationally,
European leaders are expected to discuss Donald Trump's latest tariff threats as they gather today in Brussels for a meeting on defense. As Canada and Mexico grapple with the imminent imposition of trade levies from Washington, the EU is now braced for similar tariffs coming its way, particularly after Trump called the EU, quote, an atrocity.
It will definitely happen with the European Union, I can tell you that, because they've really taken advantage of us. And we have over a $300 billion deficit. They don't take our cars, they don't take our farm products, they take almost nothing, and we take everything from them. But the European Union is it's an atrocity.
The EU's top foreign policy representative, Kaja Kallas, warned of the consequences of any possible trade war between the European Union and the US.
We were listening carefully to those words, and of course we are preparing also on our side. But what is clear, there are no winners in trade wars. If United States and the US start the trade war, then the one laughing on the side is China. We are very interlinked. We need America, and America needs us as well. The tariffs increase costs. They are not good for the jobs, not good for the customers either. That is clear.
And our correspondent, Lucia Schulten, is at the EU gathering in Brussels. There, Lucia, a strong response from the EU's top diplomat there. What else have leaders been saying about the threatened tariffs?
Yeah, when leaders were coming in here, nearly all said that this is a bad idea. So this was more or less the tone we heard here. So we heard clearly from German Chancellor Scholz that imposing tariffs would be a bad idea for the European Union, but also for the United States. And at the same time, leaders have been making a point for European strengths. So we have heard, for example, from Luxembourgish Prime Minister Luc Frieden that the European Union is as strong as the United States, and they're trying to, show that they are ready and that they're strong. But at the same time, and I think this is also important to say, leaders have also been saying that they want to cooperate with the United States, and that, the United States and the European Union are the biggest trading partners also when you count investment in. So this is really important for European leaders to make the point they still want to negotiate, and if needed, they're ready to retaliate. This would be on the European Commission, who's competent for this. And the European Commission has also been saying and stating for a while now that it is prepared to retaliate, but this is seen as a last resort here in the European Union.
Let's see, briefly, please. What are the industries that could be hit?
So this will really depend on if there are tariffs coming, how they would actually look like. It is very likely that there will be the industries where most of the exports are going from the European Union to the United States. And in the past, this has been machinery and vehicles, but also chemicals. So I'm sure that there are a lot of industries which are producing these goods, looking at what is happening right now very closely.
Lucia Schulten in Brussels there, thank you. And we are now joined by Inga Fechner. She's senior economist for Germany and global trade at the ING Bank and joins us from Frankfurt. Now, the EU has warned that it will respond firmly if it becomes a target of US tariffs. What would be an appropriate European response?
Well, the European Union has several options. First of all, they could rather tend to negotiate and buy more US LNG. They could buy more military equipment. They could also step up the defense spending. So it's now 2% of GDP, but Trump said it should be 5% of GDP. So they could do a bit more there. But if that fails, then the EU has made it quite clear that they would retaliate. They also did retaliate last time. So in Trump's first administration, they did target several goods such as whiskey, bourbon, agricultural products, corn, orange juice, Harley-Davidson motorcycles, or Levi's jeans. So it is quite likely that they would go ahead and target those goods once again. The question, of course, always is, we do have 27 different countries within the EU. So can they really stick together? Can they really work together? Can they really unite themselves and work together? Or can Trump target individual countries and has some leverage there?
Now, Trump has claimed the following about the EU. As we've heard, they don't take our cars, they don't take our farm products, they take almost nothing, and we take everything from them. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, it is fair in the sense that the European Union does run large trade surpluses with the US. So it means that they export more to the US than they import from the US. In fact, the US market is the most important export destination for Europe. So 1/5 of all European exports go to the US. It's predominantly pharmaceutical products, medicaments, and then, of course, cars. But the European Union also does get lots of oil and gas and also pharmaceutical products from the US. But of course, they do have this trade surplus, and nations with a large pharmaceutical or chemical sector, such as Belgium and Ireland, and then also nations with a large transport and machinery sector, such as Slovakia and Germany, they will be in the immediate firing line.
Now, the stock market has already taken a hit. How badly do you think a US-EU trade war would hit the global economy?
Well, it would be quite devastating for sure. So if we would see a full-blown trade escalation, especially since it's not just about the EU and US, but also US targeting its closest allies, Canada, Mexico, then going against China and potentially going against BRICS, lots of other countries. So if we would see a full-blown trade war all around the world, then that would have devastating consequences for GDP growth. It would probably push several economies into recession.
Now, you said earlier that Europe must stand united against any possible tariffs from the US. But he also said that that Trump would try and target individual countries. What countries would he target and how?
So probably the car sector. So here, of course, Germany would be in the firing line, because Germany does export cars to the US, although many companies already do have production facilities in either Mexico or the US. There are still lots of cars still going to the US market here from Europe. So he might go after cars. Not all European countries do produce cars. So it always remains to be seen whether they can then unite and say, okay, it's not just about cars, but he's really threatening the European Union. He's threatening all of us. So there we do need to be careful that it's about, let's say, the common cause and not just going after individual countries and not looking only for the own interests, but have the common European interest at heart.
Sudan's army has been regaining control of parts of the capital, Khartoum. Its battles with the paramilitary rapid support forces have caused widespread destruction. Millions of people have fled, and those who've stayed through nearly 2 years of conflict say they have some hope now the army is in control. Hiba Morgan reports from Khartoum.
This street in Bahri is one of the main roads in the Sudanese capital and was once vibrant and filled with life. But battles between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces for control of this and neighboring areas have left it in ruins. The army's operations have focused on Bahri in recent weeks.
We're now in the Shambat military base, which was just until recently under the control of the rapid support forces. After heavy battles, we took full control of the base. We assure Bahri residents that the city is now safe.
The Rapid Support Forces, or RSF, controlled most of Bahri since the war began in April 2023. Many of its residents were forced to flee as basic services were cut off and hospitals destroyed, leaving few options for healthcare. This well was the only water source, even though the river is less than 2 kilometers away.
Everyone in the district comes to take water from here. We drink from it, bathe from it, wash our clothes from it. Going to the river was not allowed by the RSF. The RSF would stop you, beat you, and accuse you of passing information to the army. I haven't seen the river in almost 2 years, despite it being near my house. Now that the RSF is gone, we hope to get water through our taps like before.
Hatim Ali has lived in Bahri all his life. A fisherman, he says the RSF not only prevented him fishing for a living, but also restricted his family's movements. He says he was repeatedly beaten for leaving his house and shows us what he says are marks from an RSF assault a day before the army took over.
When I went to get food, they accused me of working with the army, even though I'm only a civilian. I used to struggle to get food for my children. We don't have electricity, we get water from the well, and my kids have not gone to school since the start of the war. But now we thank God and we hope things can gradually return to normal, that we can have electricity, and that the kids can go to school.
The army's operation isn't over yet. and reversing the effects of the conflict will likely take time. But those who've remained say at least now there's hope the situation may improve and life may return to normal soon. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Bahri, Khartoum.